Kelvin Kattar with the huge upset, man. He comes back in fantastic fashion, proved me and a lot of people wrong about his comeback, and shows some new wrinkles in the fight that I did not expect from him. He definitely got better after that Max Holloway loss. Those are the kind of losses that will discourage a lot of fighters on the return. But Kelvin Kattar took it as a learning lesson, came back against one of the hypest guys in the division, one of the scariest strikers, and did not allow himself to get pressured, did not allow himself to sit on his defense and lack counter punches. Besides in the first round where Kattar was feeling it out, he was not letting Giga get any sort of advantage in terms of pressure. He wanted to keep him on the back foot the entire time because he probably knew that Giga had questionable cardio. And man, it's not just questionable anymore. Giga Chikadze's cardio is his main weakness, and it's so bad it might even be worse than Zabit's. And the reason why I say that is Zabit will wrestle people and gas out in the third round no matter what happens, right? In the first two, wrestling and striking, mixing up the game, he's good for 2 rounds. Giga gassed out after 1 takedown in the first. In the second round, he was a different fighter. His feet were just not under him no matter what he was doing, punching, moving around, kicking, which takes off a lot of the power off of his shots. And it just confirms for all of us, we know probably where Giga Chikadze stands if his cardio is always going to be like this. Volkanovski would have done some horrible things to this guy, knowing that that's how fast Giga will gas out after a takedown. It would be a field day for Volkanovski. And as for Max Holloway, I don't think it would have been as easy, given the fact that Holloway doesn't necessarily go for takedowns, so the majority of the fight will be striking, which means that Giga would most likely be good for 2 rounds. Start the gas out in the third, because you do have to remember this about strikers and wrestlers. They have different mechanics for cardio. Giga Chikadze is a long-time striker. You can see in his kickboxing bouts and his fights in MMA. When the fight is standing, his cardio does not plummet the way it does when someone wrestles him. Wrestling cardio for strikers is a bit different. It's the faster way to get him tired, and I believe Kelvin Kattar also knew this going into it, because in the first round, Kattar had a hard time actually striking with him. He was getting kicked to the legs, kicked to the body. The left straight from Giga was just intercepting Kelvin Kattar routinely. Kattar kept walking into that left straight, and it wasn't only for the first round. The whole fight, that left straight was constantly tagging him. But with the amount of power and effort that Giga put in his left straight, made me believe that he was looking to knock out Kelvin Kattar right from the get-go, which is never really a good plan against someone like Kattar, who's shown to have one of the best chins in the UFC, and tonight was proof as well. Giga hits hard, man. He is a knockout artist. The punches and kicks that Kattar took from Giga boggles my mind, man. After tonight, I believe no one can knock out Kelvin Kattar unless his chin declines. The way he is right now in his prime, it's hard to see anybody knock this guy out. And honestly, we got to give Giga some credit too. He took some huge shots from Kelvin Kattar, and Kattar can crack. But ultimately, because of the speed advantage that Giga had and his shot selection and the amount of variety of strikes that he was throwing at Kattar, kicking his legs early in the fight, when Kattar saw the opening for the takedown as Giga missed his head kick, the rotation caused him to lose balance and fall over. The way Kattar dove in for that takedown reminded me of people shopping on Black Friday. I mean, he wanted that takedown really bad. And the fact that he saw the opening for Giga's back made the takedown all the more rewarding for him to get it to the ground. And as soon as the fight got to the ground, nothing much happened until like the last minute of the first round. For almost 2 minutes, Kattar was sitting on top in half guard, and Giga made the mistake of trying to shrimp, push away at the hips, and at the same time he gave up his back trying to get away. This caused Kattar to return Giga to the mat, and Giga started to attack a guillotine, putting effort in a way to finish and also scramble his way out of this position. Now, as we all know, what we've seen time after time when someone gets put into a guillotine while on top in half guard, the natural counter to this is the Von Flue choke. I never would have thought that Kelvin Kattar would have went for a Von Flue choke. I mean, most fighters under the light heavyweight division don't even go for this technique. The more weight you have, the bigger you are, the more effective the submission is going to be. But by Kattar attacking it in the way that Giga wanted out of that position, try to throw Kattar over using that right underhook, it showed a bit of a panic from Giga Chikadze. In that moment, shows to me that Giga was going to gas out after the grappling exchange. When you panic, you gas out much faster. And knowing that Giga is not a natural grappler, the panic is going to settle a lot faster for him when things are not going his way. This is associated with anxiety, which is going to raise the adrenaline, raise the energy levels, and that's one big reason why he was able to almost flip over Kelvin Kattar from this position, which is pretty difficult to do. It showed he put all of his strength and energy to try to get out of that position, and I also believe it's a huge contributing factor to how he gassed out so fast in the fight. And afterward, Kattar attacked an arm triangle, and Giga went out of that position as well. He gave up his back to Kelvin Kattar, trying to return over so he could reverse the position and get on top of Kattar, but the fact that he was still caught into the arm triangle, he settled his position and didn't really want to move and allowed Kattar to rotate slowly and get his back. The body triangle is also going to perpetuate the exhaustion for Giga Chikadze. After that whole sequence happens, Giga was not the same fighter. A lot of things were labored afterward. He tried the same kind of techniques, but then you started to see that Kattar wasn't respecting the power as much as he was in the first round. He felt the power in the first round from Giga, and then he felt the power from him in the second round, and he was able to compare the two. Feeling that the power was not the same as it was in the first round, he was more willing to walk down Giga and trade shots with him. And the thing about kickers are, they are much easier to pressure than anybody else because they have to always reset after they throw kicks, and generally the reset is backwards. Generally, when you see fighters throw kicks and look at to reset their stance, they usually like to move backwards away from the opponent. Every time Chikadze kicks, he backs away, giving Kattar more space to pressure forward. But generally throughout the fight, Giga Chikadze's intercepting shots were his main success in the fight. Kelvin Kattar didn't really show to have the best defense, to be honest. He would guard up a lot, and those straight lefts, those jabs would get through, sometimes even hooks around the guard, and when he's taking a back step away from a shot, he's always moving in a straight line. Sometimes, when he sees the same punch twice consecutively, then he'll move his head off the center line, he'll slip to the side, and look to counter with an uppercut or something like that, but for the most part, he was walking into a lot of shots. And it just shocks me that he never got hurt by any of them. And even there was a moment in the second round where Kattar was constantly moving forward, putting up a high guard, and Giga kept landing a left hook around his right guard. And after faking like he's gonna throw another one, you see Kattar actually move his head to the left. This is off the center line, which is something he does only when he sees the same punch multiple times after each other. Giga goes to the body instead. From this left hook to the body, he uses that as a conditioning factor. As you can see him, he fakes like he's gonna go low to the body again with his left hand, and this causes Kattar to drop his right hand, putting his focus on it, ultimately making him not able to see the right straight coming at his head instead, and even showed a lack of awareness to follow Giga in that first round specifically before Giga gassed out. You would see Giga actually fake his movements like he's gonna go to the right or to the left, and Kattar didn't really know which direction he was going to move. So you see Kattar actually switch into southpaw, thinking that Giga Chikadze was gonna move to his own right, which is also going to be into Kattar's power hand. But instead, Giga moves the opposite direction, and once Kattar found that out, he saw which direction Giga actually moved, he re-switches back into his original stance. But the moments where Kelvin Kattar was actually throwing his power shots were really only when Giga was close to the fence. The closer Giga got to the cage, the more willing Kattar was going to throw his power punches. The hooks, the uppercuts, the knees, things you did not really see for the majority of the fight when it was more in the center and Giga was moving away. When that was happening, Kelvin Kattar was throwing a lot more jabs in order to control the pace of the fight, constantly put something in front of Giga for him to react to, and when he's reacting, he's ultimately going to back up. So the jab is going to cause Giga to back away consistently in the fight. Kattar had a bit of a system going on here. In the center of the cage, the majority of his attacks were jabs, in order to get Giga to constantly move around, cause him to gas him out, get him to constantly react, and as soon as he gets close to the cage, that's when he starts to get a little bit more risky with his attacks, as he knows that Giga's best means of evading punches is to create distance because he's a 6-foot fighter in the featherweight division. So his head movements in close distance aren't necessarily going to be the best means for him to get away from punches and kicks and elbows and knees. Because here's the thing that happened later in the fight. Instead of moving away from everything that Giga was doing for like the first 3 rounds, in the last 2 rounds, you start to see him bob and weave on punches and move his head closer to Kattar. So when Kattar starts to see this happen, instead of going to punches and kicks, he started to use elbows a lot more, because elbows are a great way to catch someone slipping in short range. The diagonal angles that you can throw an elbow with are perfect for these kind of head movements. Bobbing and weaving in these kind of head movements are perfect for boxing, but in MMA, man, they could be a liability. They can get you knocked out because there's these kind of techniques that get used. The knees and the elbow specifically are major weapons against this sort of head movement, which is another reason why boxers coming into MMA cannot really move their head the same way. But Kattar did bring one new wrinkle to his game that he probably saw from Brian Ortega throw multiple times in his most recent fights. The new wrinkle was a spinning back elbow. If he got pressured too heavily backwards, if he saw that Giga was actually trying to find his way out of this whole system, he would try to knock him back into the system with the spinning back elbow, because Giga's way of getting out of it has to be by rushing forward. Now, the switching of stances you saw in the fight from both fighters, it was pretty basic as to why they were doing this. Whenever they were in the same stance, Chikadze would use his jab instead. No matter what stance Giga Chikadze was in, Kelvin Kattar would throw the same attacks, regardless. He will still pump out the jab from a distance, no matter if Chikadze is an orthodox or southpaw. But as for Kelvin Kattar, this definitely did mix up the attacks for Chikadze, but ultimately at the end of the day, the reason for the attacks were the same. Same stance, Giga throws out the jab. Opposite stance, Giga throws out the straight. And they're both used to create distance, intercept, cause damage, and they're both on the straight line. So as you can see in this fight, Kelvin Kattar showed much higher fight IQ. He had a whole game plan he revolved around this fight and fought to it perfectly from beginning to end. The only liability, the only thing that he really needs to work on, number one is cardio, of course. He did gas a little too early in this fight compared to when he fought Max Holloway. And number two, the defense walking forward. I know his chin is great, but you don't want to rely on your chin that much, man. Everyone's chin cracks one day if they get hit too much. And the day that Calvin Kattar's chin cracks might be the day he declines heavily in the sport. And that is definitely something we do not want to see. In every single fight, there's always something to learn from both fighters, win or lose. It's a reason why I don't like the moniker win or learn, because even in wins, you should be learning a lot. But yeah, man, Calvin Kattar proved a lot of people wrong tonight. He's much better than he was before. Man, this guy has a very bright future. I've been high on this guy ever since the Shane Burgos fight when I made that breakdown. I knew Calvin Kattar would be a top contender one day, and I'm just so happy to see him get better and better every single time. And that is the end of the breakdown, guys. Calvin Kattar has showed where he stands in this division. Giga Chikadze is a dangerous fighter. He's very good on the feet, and Calvin Kattar beat this guy down for almost 5 rounds. A fight I would like to see with him next would be him versus Brian Ortega. That would be an excellent fight to put together. Ortega's another top 5 contender. As for Giga Chikadze, I wouldn't mind to see him versus Dan Ige. That would be a great fight, and Dan Ige is also a guy who can wrestle very well, so it would be another big test for Giga. So hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown. If you did, give this video a thumbs up. If you enjoyed my content, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.